Were you troubled by the how Kamala Harris was selected after he stepped down?
Yes and no. So I argued for an open convention. And so if Biden had stepped down when we were trying to get people into the primary, knock them out, then that would have been a perfect solution. Then all the governors could go in, Walz, Beshear, Whitmer, Kamala Harris goes in, obviously. They have a real primary. At that point, later Dean Phillips came in, Marianne wouldn't drop out. Me and Dean would definitely drop out because our whole point was get other people in the race, make sure we win, right? So, okay, then you would have had a great primary. It would have been the right way to do it, both morally, constitutionally, et cetera, but also as a matter of politics, because you would have gotten a lot of coverage for your young, exciting candidates, and you would have legitimized the idea that you're protecting democracy. Okay, so that didn't happen because of Biden. It is what it is. So now when Biden drops out, at least do a vestige of democracy. Go to the convention and do what it's designed to do, which is pick a candidate. Ezra Klein made a great case for this in a New York Times podcast that he did. That made a huge difference, and he was great for doing that. So I believe in an open convention. But I know Democrats, they love to anoint because they don't trust the people. So they think the elites are geniuses. Don't worry, we'll pick the right candidate. Yeah, I remember when you picked Hillary Clinton. How'd that work out, right? And I remember when you said Joe Biden was the right candidate in 2024. How'd that work out? Do not anoint, right? So, but in the end, they didn't. So what happened was Biden does the first announcement. He either forgot or on purpose didn't put Kamala Harris in there. So there's all this kumbaya now. Nah, they don't like each other. Okay, and Biden's been screwing her over the entire time she's been vice president. So he doesn't put her in the original statement. And I'm like, whoa, I do a live video in media. I'm like, Kamala Harris is not in the statement, right? In the middle of my video, they put out a second one. Going, okay, fine, Kamala Harris, right? Because that's too much for the president not to endorse.
You think it was like really... like somebody like stormed into the room and said, you absolutely must?
I don't know. I wasn't there, but probably, right? Or they planned, I don't know. But the bottom line is, it was glaring that he didn't put her in the first letter, okay? So he had to put her in the second one. Fine, no problem. But Obama, Pelosi, and Schumer did not endorse Kamala Harris. That's huge. Normally, the Democrats would all endorse her and would all say, she's anointed. Shut up, everybody. And then MSNBC would scream, shut up, she's anointed, right? But they didn't do that. So then Kamala Harris had to win over the delegates. And I thought she would win them over in the convention, but she locked them up in 2 days. And I know delegates because I ran. And the delegates are calling me saying, she's getting on a Zoom right now with us, right? She went to all the states and worked her ass off and locked up enough delegates to get the nomination in 2 days.
Yeah, but come on, it's Biden endorsed.
Of course. So
but why is that an of course? Why not say sort of lay out Walz and Shapiro and Kamala Harris and the options to say, let's like at least a facade of democracy, of a democratic process.
There's what should happen and what is likely to happen. So should Biden not have endorsed? Yeah, of course. I think Biden should have done the same thing as Obama and Pelosi and not endorse and say, hey, we'd love to have a process where we figure out who the right nominee is. And at that point, I'm really worried about Kamala Harris because she's doing word salads nonstop, right? So I'm like, don't make the same mistake we did before and just pick someone out of a hat. Test them. You get stronger candidates when you test them. The authoritarian nature of the DNC drives me crazy. They don't believe in testing candidates. They don't believe in letting their own voters decide. And look, when we were in the primary, they canceled the Florida election. And they took me, Dean, and Marianne off the ballot in North Carolina and Tennessee. I'm like, guys, if you're going to make a case for democracy in the general election and you cancel elections in the primaries, do you not get how ridiculous you look, how hypocritical you look, right? So I didn't want Biden to endorse anyone, but I'm shocked that they didn't all endorse her because normally what happens is they all endorse. So bottom line, Lex, is did she earn it in a perfect system? Not even close, right? But did she earn it enough in this imperfect way where at least she showed some degree of competence that assuaged my concerns? Yes. So because a normal Democrat would bungle that. They wouldn't go talk, like Hillary Clinton wouldn't have talked to the delegates. She would assume that she's the queen and that they would all bow their heads. She would, so the fact that she did elementary politics correct for Democrats, that's like a big win.
It just really frustrated me because it smelled of the same thing of fucking over Bernie in 2015, 16. And RFK and just the anointing aspect. Now, they seem to have gotten lucky in this situation that it's very possible that Kamala Harris would have been selected through a democratic process. But I have to say, listening to the speeches at the DNC, Walz was amazing. Shapiro was really strong. And Kamala actually was much better as compared to her as a candidate previously. But personally, don't think she would have been the result of a democratic process.
So you don't often give your opinions, but when you give the opinions, I actually agree like a huge percentage of the time in this conversation. So I fought for Shapiro in the primary and when she was trying to pick for a VP, because I thought there's no way she's going to pick Walz. He's way too, not just progressive, but more importantly, populist, right? So I didn't think she'd go in that direction. And Shapiro actually did a bunch of populist things in Pennsylvania. That's part of the reason why he's so popular in Pennsylvania. He looks like a smooth-talking politician, but his actions are pretty good. And so Shapiro was great. Walz was great. The Obamas are legendary. Even Clinton at his advanced age makes terrific points in his speech where you go, well, that one's hard to argue with, right? And so I'm shocked at the competence of the DNC, shocked at it. But of all of those, Lex, so you can give a good speech and the Obamas give a mean speech. Yeah. But I saw Obama as president. He didn't deliver on that. So... But the one guy that stood out is Walz. And the reason is because he's a real person.
Yeah, real person, populist.
We all got to work towards picking the most genuine candidates. So here, on the right-wing side, for example, I would prefer a Marjorie Taylor Greene to a Mitch McConnell any day. Marjorie Taylor Greene is genuine. She might be genuinely nuts. I don't agree with her. She might be even more right-wing than others. But I believe that she means it. Mm-hmm. And I'll take that any day over a fraud corporatist like Mitch McConnell, who's just going to do what his donors command of him, etc.
I got to ask you, because I also love Bernie, still got it. I love Bernie. Always have. I enjoyed I think he might still do it, but I enjoyed his conversations with Tom Hartman. He's a genuine one. Like Bernie, even if you disagree with him, that's a genuine human being.
Yep.
So just talk about that. Does it trouble you that he's been fucked over in 2015, 16, and again 2020? He seems to be, and why does he keep forgiving people?
Yeah. So I love Bernie for the same reason you're saying it, because he's a real person. He's a populist. He means it. And that is so rare in politics. I feel like I'm Diogenes and I went looking for the one honest man and found it in Bernie. And so I did a video in 2013 saying Bernie Sanders can beat Hillary Clinton in a primary. Mm-hmm. In 2013, that video exists. Because why did I think that? I didn't say it of any of the corporate politicians and the guys who were supposed to challenge her and stuff, because populist and honest, right? Mm-hmm. And the country's dying for an honest populist, dying for it, right? So love the brother. Now, that doesn't mean that he's right on strategy. And he drives me crazy on strategy. So two elements of that. Number one, in 2016 and in 2020, for God's sake, attack your opponent. You said something about Trump that I disagree with, where I'm defending Trump, okay? You don't like what he did to the public discourse. No, I don't mind it. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because at least he got a little bit past the fakeness. Like, he's a con man and he's a fraud overall, and he does everything for his own interest, but at least he doesn't speak like a bullshitting politician, right? And he's not wrong that you have to bully your own party to amass enough power to get things done. And he showed that that's possible. So the problem with the Democrats is civility. So my whole life, they're like, oh, no, don't say anything. Let's lose with civility, right? So, for example, in debates, whether it's on TV, online, or whatever, Democrats or people on the left are always saying, I'm offended. I never get offended. No, after I'm done, you're going to be offended. Okay? Fight back. Fighting back wins. and we couldn't get Bernie to fight back. In 2020, he was one state away. He won the first 3 states. He crushed in Nevada. All we needed was South Carolina. But in order to get South Carolina, we all knew, everybody on his campaign, everyone who's in progressive media, we all knew you've got to attack Biden. If you don't, they're just going to tsunami you. You know, corporate medias and the corporate politicians are going to run roughshod over you. You have to make the case against them. And so 2 times Bernie flinched. One in 2016 in the Brooklyn debate, they asked, did the money that Hillary Clinton taken from the banks affect her votes? And he said, no. Of course it affected her votes. Of course it did. You have to say yes, and you have to show it and prove it. The bankruptcy bill. When she was first lady, she was totally in favor of the American people and against the bankruptcy bill because it has the banks, you can't discharge any debts that the credit card debt and bank debt, etc. It's an awful bill. It's one of the most corporatist bills. She was on the right side as a first lady. She becomes a senator, takes banker money, and all of a sudden she flips over to the banker side. Say it, Bernie, for God's sake, say it, right? Then in one of the debates in 2020, his team prepares attacks against Biden. They're not personal. They're not like you can sense by now, if I'm in a political race, my objective is rip the other guy's face off, right?
Yeah.
Politically, rhetorically, never physically.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so, but I would get it to a point where they'd think, I don't know if I'm going to vote for Cenk, but I know I'm not voting for the other guy. Okay. So you got to do that if you want to win. So they prepare this. He says, I'm going to do it. He goes on the podium and doesn't do it because he can't. He's too damn nice. He just can't attack the other guy. Now, that's problem number 1 in strategy. Problem number 2 is something you alluded to. So Biden gets in office. Bernie thinks they're friends. They're not friends. Biden's just using him. So he uses him to get the credibility, and then he eviscerates 85% of the progressive proposals that Bernie put forward. Biden throws away $15 minimum wage. That was Bernie's signature issue. Doesn't even propose the public option. Dumps paid family leave for no reason. I can go on. And Bernie co-signs on it because he thinks he's in an alliance. He thinks Biden's on his side, and he thinks we're going to get things done. And to be fair to Bernie, like I said earlier, Obama got only 5% of his agenda passed, and Biden got 15%. Okay. So you're right, Bernie, you got 3 times more than under Obama, but you're wrong. That is not fundamental change. And without fundamental change, we're screwed.
Let me ask you about another impressive speech, AOC. Is it possible that she's the future of the party, future president?
No. So AOC, in my opinion, lost her way. And so...
In which way?
So... It's tough talking about these things because people take it so personally, right? And that's why you'll see very few politicians on our shows because we give super tough interviews and the words out in the street, right? Like, don't go on Young Turks. They'll ask you super hard questions, right? So there only a couple do it. Like Ro Khanna does it. He's brave. We'll get into shouting matches sometimes in the middle of bills and stuff. But at least he's there to defend his position. I respect him for that. Tim Ryan, a little bit more of a conservative Democrat when he was in the House. He would take on any debate, et cetera. So there's a couple of good guys that do it, but generally they don't. So when this relates to AOC, because when AOC's running, we do 34 videos on her. We get her millions of views. We founded Just Democrats and now launched it on the show. Our audience, Ryan Grimm documents it in one of his books. Our audience raises $2.5 million for those progressive candidates overall. And at that point, AOC and all those Rashida Tlaib, et cetera, they're all dying to come on a Young Turks. Makes sense. I would too, of course. It's not because it's the Young Turks, it's any media outlet. And most media outlets, almost all the media outlets reject them. We cover AOC more than all the other press combined, right? And she wins for a number of reasons. That's one of the reasons, but there's many others, and she did a terrific job herself. She then takes Shoykant and Corbyn, who were Shoykant was the head of Just Democrats, and Corbyn was communications director for Just Democrats. Then Shoykant made one of the most brilliant political decisions arguably in American history. He called me and he said, Cenk, I'm going to go from head of Just Democrats to running AOC's campaign. And I'm like, well, the other candidates are going to get pissed. And you're staking the entire enterprise on one candidate. And I'm like, Shortcut, I'm not in it. I'm doing the media arm. You're in the trenches. You're the guy making the decisions. So I'm going to trust whatever you say. You sure? And he said, yeah, I'm sure. So him and Corbyn go over to AOC's campaign. AOC then wins that miraculous win. Then she hires Shortcut to be her chief of staff, and she hires Corbyn to be her communications director. Within 6 months, they're gone. And once they're gone, AOC then goes on an establishment path. Okay. Because why were they gone? Oh, they insulted one of her colleagues. Yeah, that colleague who's a total corporatist and was selling out one of our policy proposals. If you don't call out your own side, you're never going to get anything done. But if you call out your own side, you become persona non grata, and it is super uncomfortable. And we couldn't get them to do things that were uncomfortable. Now, she's going to find that outrageous, and she's going to be very offended by that. And she's going to point to a bunch of things she did that were uncomfortable. And to be fair to her, she has. She's, until that speech, she was pretty good on Palestine when we desperately needed it. She was pretty good on a bunch of issues. Cori Bush did that campaign on evictions, et cetera, on the Capitol steps. That was great. AOC's original sit-in Pelosi's office. At that point, we're all still on the same team. It's a spectacular success. Me, Corbyn, and Shortcut are saying, do it again, do it again. Like, not don't abuse it. Like, don't be a clown and do it every other day. But like, when it matters, you need to be able to challenge Pelosi, right? And in my opinion, she just got to a point where she got exhausted being uncomfortable. It's really hard. The media hates you, and they keep pounding away and calling you a radical, and you're destroying the Democratic Party. You're destroying unity. So whereas if you go along, all of a sudden you're a queen, and now all of a sudden the mainstream media is saying, "Oh, AOC, she could be the progressive."
I mean, there's some degree to which you want to sometimes bide your time and just like rest a bit. And
Yeah.
I think, from my perspective, maybe you can educate me. She seems like a legit progressive, legit even populist, charismatic, young. Like a lot of time to develop the game of politics, how to play it well enough to avoid the bullshit. I guess she doesn't take corporate PAC money.
That's right. No, she's still true on that.
So as far as just looking over the next few elections, like who's going to be running, who's going to be a real player. She just seems like to me, it seems like an obvious person that's going to be in the race.
So while I fight for the ideal, I'm very practical. So, for example, she wins, and then one cycle later, after 2020, there's these guys who wanted to quote unquote force the vote, and it was on the speakership of Nancy Pelosi, and they wanted to use it to get Medicare for all. I'm like, guys, forcing a vote is a terrific idea. On the speakership, okay, who's your alternative? Oh, we don't have an alternative. Already giant red flag. Okay. What's the issue you're looking to have them vote on? Medicare for all. Oh, you don't know politics. So I love Medicare for all. We have to get Medicare for all. But if that's the first one you put up without gaining any leverage, you're going to get slaughtered. Put up something easy. Force a vote on $15 minimum wage, or pick another one that's easy, paid family leave. These are all polling great, because if you force a vote on that, you could actually win. And if you win, you gain leverage. And then you do the next one and the next one. And then you do Medicare for all. Not bullshit gradualism that the corporate Democrats do, but actually strategically, practically building up power and leverage and using it at the right times. So if I thought that's what AOC was doing, I would love it. Right? So I don't need her to force a vote on Medicare for all. I don't need her to go on some wild tangents that don't make any sense and is only going to diminish your power. But when they eviscerated all the progressive proposals in Build Back Better, how did that happen? Manchin and Sinema used every ounce of leverage they had. They said, I'm just not going to vote for it. I don't care. Okay? The status quo is perfect for my donors, so I don't need you. I vote no. Okay. Now take out everything I want. And Biden did, right? Progressives had to push back and say, here is 2 to 3 proposals, right? Not everything, 2 to 3 proposals. They all poll over 70%. They're all no-brainers, and they're all things that Joe Biden promised. We want those in the bill, otherwise we're voting no. At that point, the media, what would have happened is the media would have exploded, and they would have said AOC and the rest are the scum of the earth. They're ruining the Democratic Party. We're not going to get the bill. They're the worst. You have to withstand that. If you cannot withstand a nuclear blast from mainstream media, you're not the person. Because you have to go run that obstacle course to get the change. If they had stood their ground, they definitely would have won on 1 to 2 of those issues. Instead, they went with a strategy that was literally called Trust Biden.